Hi, welcome to another edition of the Sustainable Scoop. My name is Hannah Testa, and I'm a 17-year-old activist and founder of Hannah for Change. I know an awful lot on plastic pollution. I've been working on the issue for the last 7 years, specifically on the policy side. So I'm so excited to be talking about plastic legislation today. I established in the state of Georgia Plastic Pollution Awareness Day and recently wrote the book, Taking on the Plastics Crisis. Diving into the legislative side, local governments follow one or two types of governing, home rule or Dillon rule. Home rule allows local governments to maintain some control over decisions based on local concerns that may not always align with the entire state goals. Dillon rule states, like Virginia, need to have permission from the state to enact certain local ordinances, like the one we'll discuss today related to waste reduction. In January, the state of Virginia took a heroic step in addressing plastic pollution by passing Senate Bill 11 that authorizes cities and counties across the state to implement a 5-cent bag tax. Arlington's local environmental organization, EcoAction Arlington, is hoping to kick waste reduction into high gear and begin building an environmental fund with the state's first local plastic bag tax. So I'm excited to welcome Joan McIntyre and Stephen D'Alessio, two local members leading the initiative.
Yes, thank you very much. We're really thrilled to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so excited to be talking with you guys today. So my first question is to Joan. You were once the chair of board of directors and still serve on the board. Would you tell us a little bit about EcoAction's history, specifically on the issue of plastic, and why the push for a bag tax is topping the agenda?
Sure. Well, EcoAction Arlington has been around for 42 years. We're dedicated to protecting and improving the air, water, and natural spaces. We offer a whole variety of different types of activities for residents to get involved with, including one of our more popular are the cleanup events that we have, where we bring in hundreds of volunteers to pick up litters in our parks and along our streams. And it's really at these events that you can really see the damage that is caused by pollution, plastic pollution. And really, the plastic bags are really the most insidious because, they get caught in the branches and in rock crevices. They start to shred into smaller pieces. They're almost impossible to remove. So, while we do this and while we actually encourage people to reduce the amount of their own consumption of single-use plastics, we also recognize that you need to actually do something bigger and broader, and that you have to bring in governments and take some more broader action. So this is why we're excited to have this opportunity to press Arlington County to move forward on adopting this plastic bag tax.
Stephen, as a fellow young activist, what are your greatest concerns, and why should the people of Arlington, Virginia, and America get behind this important policy?
Yeah, so my greatest concern is the connection between plastic bag pollution and global warming. We don't always connect those two together, but they really are very intertwined. When a plastic bag decays, it releases substances such as methane and ethylene, which contribute to global warming. Now, for me as a millennial, global warming is huge. We are going to see the impacts of global warming much more severely than any other generation prior to us. We're going to see the really intense forest fires, more intense droughts, famines, storms, all this, whole horror house of different things that is going to make human existence much more difficult. So you know that when they've done polling for 18 to 34-year-olds, about 70% of us say that we're very worried about global warming. However, global warming is probably the top, or perhaps the top environmental crisis for all Americans. And so I hope that encourages all Arlingtonians and all Americans to get involved in the movement to reduce plastic bag pollution.
I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of times we think of plastic and climate change as two separate issues, but they are so interconnected. And it's just fighting the same fight. We need to work together. So I'm so glad you said that. Virginia as a state is known to be very pro-business, and industry seems to be the most opposed to these types of provisions. So how did this bill get passed, and who led the effort?
Well, the Senate Bill 11, which was passed, was introduced by Senator Adam Evans. He's actually one of our local senators. But I'd also note that there were actually a number of other bills that were very similar, including two presented by, again, local delegate Lopez and Senator Favola, so that there was, a lot of interest in pursuing this issue. Now, the legislative process itself was extremely messy, as you would expect. And nevertheless, this is the first time Virginia has actually passed this type of legislation. So it is a victory. And I would give a lot of credit to the Virginia Conservation Network, which is an organization of about 125 organizations that have coalesced together. And there's including Litter Free Virginia, which is it kind of led the charge on this and kind of helped coalesce advocates around pushing for these activities. And finally, I'd give credit to Governor Northam for actually signing the bill, despite a last-ditch effort by industry to actually get him to veto the bill, citing the COVID-19 pandemic.
Joan or Stephen, can either of you share some success stories related to taxes and then invested into community sustainability?
Well, I could talk about some of the successes related to the impact of these types of bills. There's about over 400 local jurisdictions across the United States, and I think about 8 states that have passed similar legislation. That actually includes DC and Montgomery County, both of which have a 5-cent fee for all disposable carryout bags, which includes both paper and plastic. And since DC has introduced it, they estimated that they've seen a 50% reduction in the use of particularly plastic bags. And then also they've seen a 72% reduction in plastics picked up during cleanups that the Alice Ferguson Foundation does. Montgomery County saw a similar 60% decline of plastics collected. So they do have an impact. And also, in looking more generally on the experiences is plastic taxes that are either banning plastics and taxing paper, or at least both banning the plastics and paper are more effective than what we have. But we do think that this having a plastic bag tax will actually help convey the message of what the social and environmental costs are of plastic pollution, and with some education behind it, encouraging people to use reusable bags. We see that it should be helpful.
Yeah, those are some incredible numbers, and would definitely love to be able to bring that here to Atlanta. Stephen, many are confused about how to avoid plastic and wondering if this tax will make much of a difference. And there's even some confusion about different types of bags, such as bread bags and dry cleaning bags. Do you see limitations to this as a solution?
Well, I mean, as Joan mentioned and has been discussed earlier, I mean, we are not going to be banning the full use of plastic. I mean, plastic is going to be a part of our lives for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. And so this is not a silver bullet solution, but as Joan mentioned, it really does make a big difference. While it can be difficult, and we're not going to be fully removing the use of plastic. Plastic, it's not a consequence-free substance to use.
Yeah, so recycling is not the best solution, and relying on
it's
that
not perfect.
Yeah, and then you don't want to increase the demand that increases plastic bags overall. So
exactly.
Great, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Are you aware of any national initiatives regarding plastics?
Yeah. So I would say that we have in Congress this year was introduced a bill called the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, and that would actually go further than what we're currently doing right now, in that it would fully ban all single-use plastic carryout bags and would place a tax on all non-plastic single-use carryout bags. It would also make certain producers of different plastic products responsible for recycling and disposing of those products. And yeah, so that's I guess it just shows that every level of government has a role to play in this, and that's one way the federal government has been dealing with the issue. So we're very excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, I was really lucky to be able to speak at the introduction of that bill in DC right before the lockdowns occurred. And uh,
Wow.
the bill is it's incredible. The policy that would create here in the US is the first bill nationally addressing plastic pollution. So I'm excited to see how that bill will end up and hopefully get it passed. Single-use plastics was in many ways a method of reducing cross-contamination and disease spread. And now with COVID-19, how are you addressing the confusion over reusables and if they're safe?
So there is no evidence that someone is more likely to contract COVID-19 from a reusable bag than from a single-use plastic bag. The reason for this is that there are many different kinds of procedures that employers can use to make sure that their employees do not touch the bags that their customers bring into the store. The other thing is that customers can protect themselves from getting COVID off of the surface of a reusable bag by bringing their bags home and dropping them in the washing machine and then washing their hands. Recently, there was a group of 100 scientists from over 18 different countries, and they all signed on to the fact that if proper procedures are taken, using reusable bags during the COVID crisis is definitely safe. And as we've mentioned earlier, as a general health issue, when you factor in the negative impact that having plastic in our water and air causes us, it really makes more sense to be switching to reusable bags.
To everyone listening, reusables are safe.
Yes.
Don't let the pandemic stop you from using reusables.
Mhm.
Joan, you've been in this battle much longer than I have. I want to know what frustrates you and what gives you hope that Arlington will take this long-awaited opportunity to address plastic bags.
Well, I think I'm pretty optimistic. In the kind of both private and public discussions that we've had with the board, there is support. We brought it up with them in their July meeting, and there was some discussion and showed support. And right now, it's on the county managers to provide a report to the county board in terms of how to move forward with the tax. I think the real issue here is timing. That you have to recognize, COVID-19 is in its impact is really absorbing most of the attention of the county board and having to deal with this issue. The other aspect is just really one of optics, is you really doesn't look right to pass a so-called tax, even though it's not really a tax because you can always use your own bags. But people are hurting right now, so anything that would seem to be harmful to the citizens. Add two is the bill allows that some of the money collected from the tax can be used to help people receiving the supplemental nutrition assistance program or the women, infants, and children's program reusable bags, so that it would reduce any possible burdens there might be on low-income families.
And Stephen, I wanted to ask you, what's your message to young people? How can more of them get involved?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the wonderful things about Arlington is that there are so many great organizations, no matter what the issue is, but specifically on environmentalism and plastic pollution, and on this campaign. There are many different organizations, and one that comes to mind is the Friends of the Mount Vernon Trail, and they help with the upkeep of the Mount Vernon Trail so that all are available to, or everyone is able to enjoy it. And they're very concerned with the plastic pollution, so they have actually signed on with us. We're really at EcoAction, we're very grateful for their help, and so that's another way, in addition to working with us, that they can get involved, especially now with COVID. The ability to just take a hike and be separated from other people and really enjoy this beautiful area that we have is so important. So that's just another way to get involved, and another great organization to be aware of.
Great, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Joan, young people have been demanding change for quite some time, but the wheels, as you know, turn slow. So what can you say to young people that assures them that this time will be different?
Well, I think I'm seeing a sea change right now. I mean, people's attitudes are really changing. And there's just a lot more concern about climate change and about some of the other environmental issues that we're dealing with. that it's it's just the amount of activism is really encouraging. I mean, it's the young people, but it's not just the young people. It's really lots of people across generations and across ethnic and racial groups that people see this as a key issue, and it affects a lot of things that are important to our quality of life, including environmental justice. So having actually, seeing all this, and we see volunteers, even more and more volunteers coming, and they want to do something. So that gives me a lot of hope. And I'd also point to the General Assembly session in Virginia this year, is that even though the plastic bag tax that we got wasn't quite what we would have wanted, it was really a historic session. In addition to legislation on a variety of other important issues such as gun control, they've passed some really historic and groundbreaking legislation dealing with the environment, controlling greenhouse gas, shifting to renewable energies, addressing environmental justice issues. So, with that in mind, it gives you some sense of what can really happen when the people really let their voice known that this is an issue that's important to us and important to our children and grandchildren.
Most definitely. So I'm sure everyone watching at home wants to know how they can reach out to you and show support for your efforts.
Yeah, you can check on our website that we have lots of information about the plastic bag tax. We've also got a petition that we'd ask people to sign, and also then share it with your friends and your neighbors if you're in Arlington. If you're not in Arlington and you live in Virginia, let your legislatures, local officials know that you'd like to see this type of tax in your jurisdiction as well. I mean, again, politicians really will listen to their voters. So the more they hear from people, the more they're actually going to respond to them.
Definitely speak up and reach out. EcoAction Arlington, perfect. So if all goes well, we may see Virginia's first bag tax in place by Earth Day next year, perhaps inspiring better resource management up and down the East Coast and hopefully in Atlanta, and reducing pollution in the Atlantic. So I want to thank Joan and Stephen from EcoAction Arlington for speaking with us today. And I want to ask each viewer watching to connect with them or some of the other organizations they mentioned to you today.
Yep. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm Hannah Testa. Find me at hannahforchange.org. That's the Sustainable Scoop. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to share and subscribe.